Hello and welcome. My name is Ryan. I'm also known as RM2KDev. Today we're going to be going over the introduction to creating an RPG game inside of GameMaker. Now the reason I'm doing this tutorial, I've actually spent quite a little bit of time just looking over the level of quality that we already have available to us as game developers, and I wasn't really able to find any sort of tutorials that covered everything that you need to know to create a game. Some of these tutorials are good, but typically I find that most of the, not that there's anything wrong with them, but most of the workflows involved and general processes and scripts that these existing tutorials are using generally wouldn't be scalable to a full-size game, and that's sort of why I've decided to create my own series of tutorials. So today we're going to start by using an RPG Maker character set. Now the reason I've chosen to use RPG Maker character sets is just because they're commonly available. If you do ask an artist to provide you a character set in the RPG Maker format, they typically may already know how to do that. And generally it's just easier because, you know, the animation sets are always predefined. And yeah, so let's begin. So I've created a project here in GameMaker. I've just named it RPG Tutorial number 1. The first thing that you may want to do is find yourself a nice character set. So I've just gone online and I've found the RPG Maker VX RTP. I think that stands for Runtime Package. And this character set here is very simple. It's just the standard heroes that are involved. Also, please forgive my mic quality. I'm currently in between moving houses and I don't have my studio set up anymore, so I'm just using a regular webcam. So yes, we're going to be using this sprite here. I'm going to show you a simple and easy way to import these into GameMaker that I believe isn't really shown very often. People sometimes use Photoshop and things like that, but there's actually a really effective way to bring these in. So I'm going to start by creating a sprite. Let's call this sprite underscore hero underscore, and then if we just have a look at this image again, we find the first row is facing down, so let's call this one down. So the next step in our tutorial, we're going to need to go and click on this edit sprite button, and this is going to bring up GameMaker's Sprite Editor. From here we can select file and create from strip. Now if you navigate through your system and find that picture, the VX RTP character set, or whatever character set you've chosen, and select open, you'll be presented with this dialog which basically shows you loading a strip image. Now what we see here is we see a bunch of parameters. The number of images here is the number of images that we wish to import. Now we don't want to import all of these images, we only want to import 3, the 3 of the hero facing down. So if we select this to 3, just like that, this is already populated and ready to go. And all we need to do is press OK, and we'll get those. Oh, sorry, I've done that wrong. Let's try that again. We just create import number of 3 images per row. Sorry, I missed that. We need to set the images per row to 3. This will basically make it go horizontally instead of vertically. Previously I had it set to 1, so it went 1, then it went to the next row 2, and then it went to the next row 3. Pulled these 3 in. But if it's set to 3, we'll get 1, 2, and then 3. So select OK, and what you'll get is the animation for the sprite. There we go. Now if you just click the little tick box here and select this center button. Now all we need to do is we copy this and paste it. Oh sorry, we right click and duplicate. Again, we name this one here sprite, we check the image, this one's facing left. Sprite hero underscore left. Again, we select edit sprite, and we just go file, create from strip. Select the same character set, and we'll be presented with the dialog box again. This time, we need to set our our vertical cell offset to 1. Now what you may be able to see, you might not be able to see this in the video because it's quite faint, but the 3 boxes that were previously up here have dropped down. Now they're on the second row. If we select OK, you'll see that the sprite has updated. The hero is now facing left. Again, select center and press OK. We repeat this 2 more times, this time for the right animation, and then the left animation. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. This time we import the same character set, and this time we set our vertical cell offset to 2. And select OK, and now the sprite is facing right. Again, center the image and press OK, and finally duplicate that image and call this one Sprite Hero Up. Oops. Select Edit Sprite, create from strip, select the character set again, and this time we set our vertical cell offset to 3. Click the tick box, center the image, and press OK. Now, some of you might be asking, well, what if I wanted to import one of the other sprites? This is also quite easy to do. I'm just going to show you a quick test, but basically if we create another sprite, we'll call this one Sprite Test, edit the sprite, create it from a strip, select the character set. Now let's say we wanted to import this green girl in the bottom right hand corner here. Basically we need to move the image all the way across to the right, so the horizontal offset is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if I set the horizontal cell offset to 9, you may not be able to see this again, but we've jumped over here. Now the previous vertical cell offset is still set to 3, which means it's the up animation of the top row. But the horizontal offset has now pushed us over to this column here, so we're looking at this green guy on the right. Now if we wanted to get the girl in the bottom right hand corner, we would start our vertical cell offset at 4, and this is going to be the down animation of this girl here. If we select OK, you'll see that represented in the Sprite Editor. So I'm just going to delete that sprite because we no longer need it. Now, once again, I'd just like to apologize if you do hear any cars coming past. Again, I don't have my studio set up anymore as I'm currently in between houses, but pretty soon, within the next 2 to 3 months, I should be getting back into a studio and we'll have nice isolated videos again. Now, if we select global game settings here and just double click on that, something I'd like to show you guys, it's a great little tip. It stops the images from blurring when you use views. So if you do zoom in GameMaker, what happens is all of the pixels will get blurry, and this isn't really good for pixel art type images like these top-down RPG games, mainly because it starts to apply a scaling algorithm that blends the colors together, and sharp edges basically turn into mush, or gooey mush we'll call it. I don't know the technical term for it, but it doesn't look good. So if we select on Windows here, or Mac, or Windows, or Linux if you're using Linux, but I'm currently on Windows, so I'm just going to select Windows. Go down to the Graphics tab and untick this box that says Interpolate Colors Between Pixels. And basically that disables that scaling algorithm so that your images will look sharper, and select OK. So we've currently got the images for a sprite. Now what we need to do is create the hero object. So if we create an object, we'll call this one here Object Hero. You can call it whatever you like, Object Hero, Object Player, and just pick a default image. I'm going to select the down image so that he starts with this down image here. Now what we do is we create in our create event, so you just add an event and select create. I'm going to drag a script in. And what this script is going to say is just image speed equals 0.1. Now the default speed for an image in GameMaker is quite fast, so we need to slow that down because our 3-frame animation would look really silly if that was quite fast. We could even set this to 0 and adjust this later, but for the moment I'm just going to leave it at 0.1. Now select OK, create a room. I'm going to call this room rm_intro. It's going to be 640 by 480 pixels, and it's going to contain the hero object in the center here. Now if we select play, I'm just going to give you a quick demo of what that looks like. So what you'll see is our hero animation. He's just running through his walk cycle now. That looks pretty good. So this is an optional step. You don't have to do this, but I tend to do it because I think it looks a little better and more reminiscent of the classic RPG genre. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable the use of views. I'm going to select visible when room starts. Now the view in the room and the port on screen, these are the two key variables here. The view in the room is how much of the game that you wish to see, and the port on the screen is how big the window will be. So if we half this, effectively we'll be getting a 2x zoom. So if I set this to 320 by 240, what you'll see is the little box appears here. And what this represents Sorry. And what this represents is the view in the room. Now, as the port on screen is set to 640 by 480, this will effectively be zoomed up double to fill the screen. Now, if we set our object following to our hero and our H-bore to 320 by 240, this will position the view directly in the center of the player. So let's run that again and have a look what that looks like. There we go. So by disabling that interpolate between colors option, we have sharp edges, and by selecting our view to be half the size of the port on screen, we've effectively doubled our zoom. This is a cool effect, but one thing to note is that you must do it in exact halves. You can't do say 240 by 180 and have the port on screen 640 by 480, as that will play with the aspect ratio and the images will no longer be square. So now let's add some basic movement to our hero. In our hero object, add an event called step. I'm going to add a script to that. Another quick little tip for while you're using GameMaker: 3 slashes at the very first line of your script will set the name of the action. So over here it says execute a piece of code. If I put 3 slashes and change this to handle input logic and tick, you'll see that that script name changes to handle input logic. This is effectively useful if we add another script and we call this one, say, something else like handle collisions, as this allows us to sort of decouple our code and also see in logical chunks where things are. This is just part of my workflow that I typically use when I'm creating games. So I'm going to get rid of that one. I'm just going to add the step event back in, and I'm going to create a code here, and I'm going to call this one handle input logic. Now, for the moment, we may come back and refactor this a little bit, but for the moment, we're just going to do a very simple keyboard check and then a pixel movement. So, if keyboard check vk underscore left, this effectively means if the keyboard checks the virtual key of left, and that returns true or false based on if the keyboard button is pressed down, then we need to set our image index, our sprite index to be equal to sprite hero left. And we repeat this 3 more times for the other directions. And just make sure while you're coding that you keep your code really clean and add comments like this handle input logic. Otherwise, code gets very messy very fast, and it becomes harder to maintain in larger projects. So I'm just going to set this one to right. Let's call this one right. Now we need an up and a down. Sorry, that's a lowercase u. We change this one here to up. Sprite. I've named the sprite here incorrectly, so I'll go back and I'll fix that up in a second. Down. We select this one here and we say down. Now if we just tick that box there, and we go over here, I've just named this one SPE, that should be named SPR. There we go. So now you'll see all of those variables match up. If we run the project now, what you'll be able to see is as I press the up, down, left and right key, the character should change to those directions. And this is the beginning of our input logic. So let's open that script up again. This time what we're going to do is we're going to say x negative equals 1 for the left, x plus equals 1 for the right, y negative equals 1 for the up, and y plus equals 1 for the down. Now, any of you children watching or kids watching, pay attention in math class at school, because that's one thing that I regret not having done. It took me quite some time to get my head around the basic mathematics involved in creating games, and I do really wish that I paid attention in math. So, with that done, we should be able to see our character move. Obviously it's going to be a little bit hard to see him move on the screen here because we don't have anything on our map. But what I can do to show you that he is moving is just disable this view, run the game again, and you'll be able to see him moving around on the screen. There we go. So with the object following, excuse me, with the object following settings in the view, by having that enabled, the camera was following our hero around, so you won't actually see the map moving until we place a background on our map. So I hope that's been a good introduction to creating our character. In the next video, we're probably going to go over importing and using a tile set from RPG Maker in Game Maker Studio. Thank you for watching. Please leave any comments and questions on this video. Subscribe to my YouTube account and also follow me on Twitter at rm2kdev. Thank you for watching, and I hope this has been helpful.